Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Here's Why You're Wrong. I'm Mick. We've got Jim over here. We've got John and Mike in the booth. You want to say hi, Mike?
Hey, gents.
And today we've got my special guest, Bryan, who's going to be here with us to discuss the topic of religion. Thank you, Bryan, for coming in.
My pleasure.
On what I think we all know will be a touchy topic. I went a little bit back and forth on whether to discuss some current events today, like we usually like to, because I thought religion is really going to be a deep one. I think this will probably be a two-part show, no matter what we do, because there's just going to be so much stuff to talk about. But I thought we would talk a little bit about Syria anyway, because that's been on everybody's mind, and it's a little light news just to sort of get us started and get us into
Civil War. Yeah, it's always
talk a little Civil War, get things rolling.
Missiles, you know.
Yeah, I am getting over a cold, so I apologize for the raspiness of my voice, although I think it does make me sound ruggedly handsome.
More so.
More ruggedly handsome. Yeah. Anyways, so I thought we would talk about Syria for a little bit, get our thoughts on that, then we'll dive into religion. If you're watching us live right now, give us a call, 503-207-7135. We'd love to hear from you. Join the discussion, and you can chat with us on the air about your thoughts. So Syria is up to their usual no-good tricks and all this kind of stuff, and I'm seeing a lot of weird splits among people that typically I can count on to be super left or super right. And people that are far left and very pro-Obama are like, Obama's screwing up on this thing. No bombs, don't attack, do this. The right, I think, finds themselves in a difficult position because they're pro-war, generally, in my opinion, and anti-Obama. So they don't want to back Obama on this thing, but at the same time, they don't want to pass up an excuse to bomb somebody. So it's an interesting sort of thing we got going on here. For me, I'm conflicted because, you know, it's easy to look at this and say, not again, we don't want to get sucked into something again. We've gone through this whole thing before, the intelligence. We end up in the Middle East, somewhere we don't belong. We get stuck there. It sounds all too familiar, yet we sort of know that they have attacked their own people. They're doing horrible things. Can we stand by and just let that happen and shut up? I don't know that we can. Well, let me start with Bryan, since you're the guest. Oh, well, you got to... Oh, the screen's not on. Sorry, John. Oh. But we're recording? Oh, all right. Interesting.
We're not live?
Why not?
My wife gave me a call. She checked both stations, and we're not going out. It's the Lisa Michaels show.
So okay.
So
not only are we...
you told me I was going to be on TV. So
I'm sorry.
This isn't, you know.
No, we're recording. Technically, we're live on the internet, but apparently, we're not going out live. And not only are we not going out live, but they've replaced me with a right-wing nut job. All right. Super.
Okay.
Super. Well, all right. Is there anything we can do to remedy the situation?
We can become right-wing nut jobs.
We're just going to keep going because the show will be recorded. It will play on repeat at some point, and maybe they can cut into us live at some point and get us on the air. Who knows? Anyways, Bryan, your thoughts, Syria, do we get involved? Do we not get involved? What do you think?
Okay. So it seems to me you touched on it a little bit. I think it's my personal opinion that right and left, I think as Americans, it's my opinion that we are fatigued by war. I mean, I think my whole life, I grew up in the Cold War time. We crawled under our desks,
right,
you know, to protect ourselves from the big one.
Yeah.
And so my perception of this country growing up was that we were the big kid on the block, if you will. But we were the big kid on the block that never fought with anyone. We were always there. There was the threat, well, except for Vietnam. Okay, so but that aside. But
just our
through
presence.
the 70s and 80s and into the 90s, we generally avoided conflict, even in some cases to the extreme. I was a kid, you know, but and so I think that it's my perception of my country that's part of what makes this country great is
right.
that we love peace, we want to help We want to be there as a force for good. And I think that it's hard to defend the idea that it's a force for good, or at least it becomes a lot more difficult when you're talking about launching missiles into a country that hasn't attacked us, that hasn't engaged in an active war toward us. And so it was simpler for me when I was thinking of it that way, and now the idea, that we've got to provide a deterrent to countries who use chemical weapons of any kind. We've got to make it clear, or the world needs to make it clear, that there's a price to pay if you use supposedly illegal weapons. And that's an argument that's good. I mean, I think it's true. I think it's a good intent to say, as a world community, we can't allow that to go on. But I personally am not completely comfortable that the United States needs to be the stick that communicates that point.
I want to focus on one thing you said there, and that's a country that's not attacked us or has not done anything towards us. And I think if we use that as the yardstick, we have to be very careful, because it's not always about us. I mean,
True.
The big go-to for everybody is the Holocaust and Nazis, and I know that's a really silly argument to make sometimes, where it's like, well, then the Nazis are going to do this. But it's a good argument in this case, because they didn't attack us either, but we should have gotten involved earlier than we did. And we sort of have a responsibility, I think, as the country of good, or however, that's how we view ourselves, certainly, to get involved. And I don't think we can ignore what goes on in Darfur and all these other places. We have to, whether they've attacked us or not, if they're killing women and children, we sort of have a duty to get involved. Jim, what say you?
Well, we didn't do anything in Rwanda. 1.5 million people were slaughtered there, but there's no oil there. So
I knew Jim was going to go down that path.
It's also neighboring and
I mean, as much as you want to say it, the self-interest of the United States, or the corporate interests of the United States, will react to the slaughter of children one way if it's in Rwanda, and the slaughter of children in another way, and if it's near the oil-producing areas that we depend on for our economy. Also, you have to think that George Bush kind of ruined it. I mean, that whole administration, if you want to be kind, they made a mistake about weapons of mass destruction and Al-Qaeda being in Iraq. And if you want to come out and say it, they outright lied about it to gin up a war that has cost hundreds of thousands of lives, destroyed, spewed depleted uranium all over the country of Iraq. And so people, when the Obama administration comes out and says, we have evidence, we can't really say what it is, but we have evidence that there's, use of chemical weapons. And then what happens if, what good is throwing some missiles in? You've already told them you're going to do that. They've moved their stuff into civilian areas. You throw some bombs in there, and then pretty soon you'll see on television the dead civilians that the United States bombs killed. Just the ongoing violence, not to mention the bridges falling down in this country, and the fact that they keep increasing class sizes, and all the economic problems that this country has, and the trillions of dollars that they continually spend on war and making war. There's a good case to not do any more bombing over there unless we're directly threatened. I suppose, I'm ambivalent about Israel, but if Israel was threatened, I guess I would have to say that would be reason enough. They're an ally, or if Turkey was threatened, part of NATO. But they're having a civil war there. It's horrible. It's a very difficult situation.
It is. John, I think John was chomping at the bit to say something there. What do you got, John?
Interesting thing on the news tonight, I don't know if you saw it, they're anticipating that this won't be a limited strike like we're thinking of. They're talking about the better part of 200 Tomahawk missiles are going to come zinging off 4 destroyers, and they're looking at B-2 and B-52 strikes continuing over a period of time from bases in the U.S. So it will be a massive airstrikes, not just a limited.
And I'd like to, if I can say something, the thing that I was saying to somebody else about this is this reminds me a little bit of a family situation. If you've got, if I may use the metaphor, you got an abusive father or abusive husband or something like that, and you've got something going on in the family, and then somebody else interjects themselves into that situation and does something to that person or whatever it is. The thing that I would say is that are you going to create affection from the kids or from the rest of the family? I mean, it's a terrible situation.
Who are the kids?
Well, I'm just saying that it's I think it's the United States is injecting itself into something where there's no win, there's no actual objective from my perspective that can really be achieved, and you're interfering. Ultimately, there's no way to avoid the idea that you're in somebody else's business. It's an ugly situation, and maybe my family thing is a bad metaphor, but the bottom line is you're going to wind up being with everyone resenting you, including the people that you are there to supposedly help.
So the neighbors who hear the beating going on next door should just say, "No,
I
honey, don't call the
shouldn't have
police.
done that.
Let's just sit
That's
here.
not really what I said.
Let's see how this plays out. You mind your own business."
No, there's forces that can take care of it that are the right thing.
Well, who are the forces then?
Well, I'm saying is that by taking aggressive action against a particular person, to the detriment of the group itself, is. So I shouldn't have done. That was a poor choice. So this is going to be a long show for me. I just want to say that right now. But
so maybe getting involved. Yeah, John.
My question would be, what about support from the rest of the world?
Yes,
I agree.
Even just verbal. Why aren't any of the Arab nations saying, "Hey, enough's enough"?
They did.
But I mean,
but to do something.
Well, not even that. There's very little condemnation.
What Arab nation are you referring to that would get? You think Iran's going to jump to our aid here?
But the Arab League, any of them.
The Arab League
Kuwait.
did, though. The Arab League came out about 3 days ago in support, saying that what they had done was reprehensible, it was a crime against humanity, and that they needed to be punished for it or whatever. They came out pretty much foursquare behind the position that the United States is arguing for, which I thought was a really big surprise. But they did it, unless they've doubled back on it.
But
the thing I want to real quickly say,
Yeah.
the country that's been the most vocal that I've read about, that's been the most vocal saying something needs to get done, this is awful, we've got to do something, is France.
I know,
and,
which
and
is
the
interesting.
The thing for me is, I'm not saying I'm against action being taken. I guess I just have a problem with the United States always being, feeling like we have an obligation to be the one that does it. There's diplomatic means, there's other things that can be done besides us being sending our Navy out there and launching missiles and flying planes over it. I would like to give other things a chance, and if France feels strongly about that, I think we can support. If you think you need to go do that, you've got an advanced Navy, you've got weaponry. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll even, I don't know, we'll whatever, give you moral support or whatever it is that we would do as for an ally. But
if your only tool is a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail.
Yeah.
And Obama's surrounded. I mean, look at in the Beltway there, he's surrounded by all these military, the Raytheons and the Lockheed Martins and the lobbyists and the generals and
you're making it sound like a conspiracy and like
not a
big
conspiracy.
missile is out to win this war. I don't think that's the case. I think he genuinely thinks he's going to do what's right and that something needs to be done. And I think you guys agree something needs to be done. You just don't agree with us doing it and it being missiles. Is that fair to say? We should get involved in some way. The world should step up and do something, but maybe air raid.
Yeah, I mean, if the world, if France, if the Europeans want to come in there, but the Arabs, it's their area. I mean, let Saudi Arabia and I don't know, the other Arab countries.
Yeah, they're great with human rights.
Yeah.
They really like to stand up for the...
I mean, yeah, and, we support them 100%.
Well, I mean, that's the crazy thing.
It's so we're ambivalent. We're ambivalent about it because, on the one hand, they say, you know the devil you know, and the devil you don't know. It's like the Israelis were saying that, I don't know who it was, somebody there saying, we know Assad, we know what he is and so forth. if he goes, what's going to take the place. So both the United States, Israel, and Europe are going, fish or cut bait. Do we, if we get rid of, if the rebels win, which is a collection of all the way from Al-Qaeda linked groups to Sunni and Shiite religious fanatics to secularists.
It's
So
a lose-lose.
A lot of them are jihadists.
it's a hard situation. I mean, I don't know.
But violence is not the answer from us necessarily. That's what I'm hearing. Which is a fair
Okay,
answer.
so what they say is, what do they say they're going to do? Shoot cruise missiles, 200. John says B-52 bombers. They blow up a bunch of stuff, and then what? What if he uses chemical weapons again? What do you do then? Blow up some more? I mean, without going in with troops and putting a stop to it, winning the war. I mean,
hear you. I hear you. I want to get to religion, so we're going to wind this up with just a couple minutes.
Well, this is kind of religion. I mean,
it is, and we'll circle back
Yeah.
to that portion of it. But what should we do then, Jim? If we don't, barring sending missiles how do we solve this?
Person, that all I know is what I hear and read. In my gut, it feels like no, lobbing bombs onto Syria is not going to solve anything.
I agree with that, but then what do
Okay.
we do? I'm asking for a solution now.
We
Fix this Middle East problem.
We do diplomacy. We talk. We give aid to refugees in Jordan. We help those people with food and water, and we help them. The refugees. We try to talk sense into people and have them stop killing them.
Okay. Bryan, how about you? What do we do? We don't send missiles in.
I would so preface my comment, I guess, by I would question whether or not, kind of like what you were saying, that I'm just not sure there's really what an effective course of action would be. I'd be interested to hear one. I'm not sure I've heard one, but I think that there's nothing wrong with diplomacy, and I don't think that I'm necessarily against if the world community feels that taking strong action is the necessary thing, then I might not oppose them doing that.
Right.
Like France or somebody,
If
or
we
the
are
Arab League or somebody else.
collectively
Yeah. but I'm-
Lithuania or
whatever.
Estonia.
Yeah. So, but I just don't. I don't like the United
horrible.
States saying we've got a military and there's something going wrong in your country, so here we come. So I just think that we need to look at it a different way and
Well,
find something different.
What do you think we should do? Try the missiles?
I have
What's
no
the right
answer.
See how it goes?
no, I have no idea.
See, we're just sitting here. We're not.
We have no idea.
Intimately, we have no idea.
Well, here's the problem that you have.
It just the gut is let's not have any more war. Let's
I
stop killing people.
I agree with that.
But you can't reason with crazy people, which brings us straight into religion. Okay? Do you guys like that transition? Did you see that? Crazy
Okay.
people right into religion. And I think religion drives so much of, this is already going to give me crap for even saying it, but a lot of the wars in the world have been started over religion. A lot of the conflicts, a lot of death comes from a lot of different things, but religion is one of the hardest things to talk somebody out of or reason with because it's so deep. It's so intrinsic to who somebody is. Like you can't convince somebody that that Judaism is better than Islam or things like that. It's never ever going to happen. Hence, Israel can never have peace. And it's always fascinated me, religion. That's why I want to have this discussion. And I'd like to start by talking about myself. Surprise, surprise.
And we're pretty much going to stay there for the
We're
rest of the
gonna
show,
stay.
right?
No, we'll talk about me for 36 and a half minutes, and then you guys can chime in.
Well, at least you're honest about that.
Listen, I'm very upfront.
Who's your barber?
So when I grew up, I went to a Jewish school, private little Jewish school, not because I'm particularly Jewish. In fact, my parents were not very Jewish at all, but they wanted me to learn all the Jewish stuff. So I ended
And
up.
you don't want to launch missiles into Syria.
I
is
don't
that
want
right?
to launch
Okay.
missiles into
Just want to
Syria.
make sure I'm getting that.
But I went to Jewish school, and I was the least Jewy guy there. Like they had all been there since kindergarten. I came in midway. They all spoke Hebrew, did the whole thing, and I felt like, whoa, I don't know what I'm doing here at all.
They taught you how to think, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
What
was
is
a
that, some
good
kind of
school.
Oh, it was a great
Yeah,
school, yeah.
good
I didn't know
school.
if you were...
No.
what-
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
To
No, it
teach
was a
Hot
someone-
shots, Jim.
It was a great school. Yes.
I'm serious. To teach someone how to think, that is
Yes.
the best education
Yes.
that there is, and I wish I had the opportunity, to do that myself.
It
with
was
education.
a
Yeah.
great education. But I felt for several years like a fish out of water because everybody else they all had bar mitzvahs. I did not.
Right.
It was this
They
culture.
were all millionaires, or wealthy
pretty,
children.
pretty
right?
much, and
Yeah.
I was not. But I was like the least Jewy guy in a Jewish school
Okay.
growing up. Then for high school, I moved to Indiana.
Should we have a bar mitzvah for you now?
I thought about it.
Let's do it.
I moved to Indiana for high school, where I'm the only Jewish kid in the whole
Right.
city. So I go from being the least Jewy kid in the Jewish school to the most Jewish guy in this little redneck Indiana town.
Indiana. Oh, the heart
So
of
it was complete
red
opposite,
state
where
America. Yeah.
people used the term Jew as an insult. Like they didn't even know I was Jewish.
Right.
You're just like, look at that Jew. Not even knowing I was really
Oh, yeah,
Jewish,
I
but
mean,
just like it's a slur.
It's
you
the
know?
it's the same thing with coon or black or
Right.
it's just racism is we grow up with it
Right.
and we constantly have to try to rid ourselves of that.
Right.
Yeah.
But so that was my upbringing. I never really took to Judaism. It's a cool religion. I never really understood it, and I grew up sort of thinking, well, geez, I believe in God, and I thought, am I agnostic? Am I what am I? And I
Are
started
you
to learn.
a theist?
I'm a deist.
A deist, I mean.
Yes.
So there
As
is
it
a
turns
God.
out, but I
He's-
didn't know that.
He set things in motion, but he doesn't have anything to do with.
Right.
human.
Or that's all I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's
He's
something-
watching TV now.
There's
so
something
he's
up
busy,
there.
right?
There's something up there. Atheists, there is no God. They believe
Right.
there is no God. Agnostic, could be a God, could not be a God. I don't know. I think there is one, and that's all I'm willing to say about it. I don't know anything beyond that, so then
Okay.
I thought, okay, well, I guess I'm a deist. Okay. So what fascinates me is people who have grown up with religion. And to preface this, I've known Jim for several years, and anyone who's watched the show before knows Jim's a super sharp guy, and he has his moments. And Jim mentioned, maybe a year ago or something that you were going to church, and I felt like, and I probably even said to Jim, "You're way too smart for that." Like I wouldn't have imagined a smart guy going to church. Okay, and that's part of my bias showing through that. Like
Einstein believed in God.
I can't connect those dots. That's crazy to me. The guy's brilliant. He has to know. Now, he could maybe believe in God, because I believe in God too. But to believe in a Christian theology, the Bible, really specific things like that, that's where they lose me. And so I've been interested in having this discussion about, okay, do you really believe that? And how can you possibly, as a mature adult, believe that? And number one, people won't even have the discussion with you. They get offended instantly. My wife's at home cringing at this very moment because whenever I bring it up at a party or something, she goes berserk. And
No, she's not. She can't hear you.
well, no, she's listening online. She's streaming it online. She can hear me. Because it's an uncomfortable topic for people.
How do you go? Where do you go online to see this?
The show?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Jim. It's right there on our banner, wrongtvshow.com. Yeah, or you can go to Facebook right here, and you'll see links on there, and or you can go.
Oops,
Yeah.
sorry.
So
no.
you're
Care-
saying that
careful there, Ryan.
Mix, you're saying that religious people don't like talking about religion? I found the opposite.
It depends on who you talk to. They'll talk about their religion, but if you suggest that their religion is totally fake and made up, they get offended for some reason.
That's very true. It's kind of like Amway.
Yes, it's like believing that Amway
I
products
did
are fake.
Amway. Should I admit that? We did it for a while.
I wouldn't admit that on the
I
air.
would
no.
Would you?
No. But so Bryan is here.
But I did
I
it
am
for a
here.
while also.
Did
Jim.
you really?
Yes, in
I am here.
college.
Yeah, keep
Here I
that to
am.
yourself too, Mike. So Bryan is here as someone that I've worked with, and Bryan has a religious background and went to Bible school, right? And I don't
Yes,
even
I
really
did.
know what Bible school is. I had friends that went to Bible school.
Can
but
they call in right now at that number?
Yeah, anybody can call it.
That's 503-207-7135.
Thank you, Brian,
Hey.
for all of you watching and listening right now.
Okay.
Brian has a great radio voice. You
He
know.
does. I know. I know. We'll have to have him on future episodes as well. So I thought it'd be good to have Brian come in because he's got a religious background. He's knowledgeable about religious history, even, right? I mean,
Were you a seminarian or?
I didn't go to seminary. I went to an undergraduate program, and I got a degree in biblical theology.
so what was your intent? What were you going to go do?
I wanted to be in the ministry. That's what I was
Was
interested
this
in
a
doing.
Protestant denomination
Yes.
or?
What does in the ministry mean? A
Be
priest?
a pastor, work
Oh,
in a
pastor.
church, and preach the gospel. Yes.
Okay.
There we go. Is that Christian enough for you?
I guess.
Okay.
I don't know what the difference between a priest and a pastor is.
Priests, well, it's just, it's a denominational thing, right?
Okay.
Catholics do priests generally. And
Catholics do priests?
Catholics,
Okay. I'd watch your-
priests, it's
I'd-
just a name, just
Okay.
a, just a,
Priests do Catholics.
Yeah.
I didn't even mean to
It
suggest
was very
anything along
close.
those
Send
lines.
those letters to Brian.
No.
Addressed it.
Yeah.
So you were on the road to, hey, this is what I want to do.
I
and
did
then-
it a little later in life. I was married and stuff like that. And what happened?
Oh, really?
So you want a personal, the personal story.
you don't
My
mind.
mother had passed away. I had it was sort of an unfinished piece of business in my life that I was interested in doing. My mom passed away. I had a little bit of money in my pocket. Nothing, a little bit of an inheritance. Nothing big, but I figured if I was going to make a change in my life, that, now was
How
the
old
time.
are you?
Right now?
No, at the time.
At the time, I was 30.
30, and your mom passed away.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I came and thought, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to go to school and do this. And so, I moved my family and did some stuff and worked really hard. I, did a full loaded school, worked 30 hours a week, had kids, and so on. And what happened was kind of through time, a couple things happened. One was I became aware that I wasn't going to be able to make the money that I needed to make.
To support your family.
Which I know I've heard you talk about in the past, but there actually isn't very much money in religion, which is contrary to many people's understanding.
Unless you're a prosperity preacher in Texas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those
Exactly.
guys that talk a good game, but they still are broke. But yes,
No,
that's
there's
true.
some of
Well,
those guys
And then
are
some of-
millionaires.
I'm
some
sure
of
they're
it's-
the
some of it's
1%,
absurd.
though. Yeah.
So to jump to that real subject, which I think is actually a key point in all of our conversation about religion, is that we all spend a lot of time thinking about the extreme cases of whether it's the millionaires and
Right.
zillionaires in Texas or whatever it is, and the vast majority is not that. But anyway, so I did that in school. The other thing that happened through time there is that my marriage began to have problems, and I began to realize that wasn't going to work, and it didn't. And so I went, sort of went back into the IT industry after school.
You got a divorce?
Yeah, wound up getting a divorce. And so a few other things that didn't quite mesh with some of the direction that I was thinking about taking. And also the other thing about the education was that, contrary to many people's understanding, they brought up a lot of really great questions about religion and got me asking questions that were more interesting and complex. And they didn't offer quick, easy answers to them. And so
Did they
And so-
make you think twice about what you were doing in the first place and talk you out of going that route?
No, they didn't talk me out of it, but and they didn't mean to create questions, in people's minds. But
Right.
for me, it did. There was some books I read and stuff like that just kind of got me, kind of going,
So it wasn't
asking-
intentional on their part,
No,
but
no,
as you got
not
more
even-
into the
no,
learning,
no.
you started thinking,
Yeah.
maybe I don't agree with
And so,
this, or this is
yeah.
interesting. Or,
So like you were talking about being not enough of a Jew in one place and too much of a Jew in another place. That's kind of where I am right now.
Right.
It seems like with Christianity, it's my background, it's where I come from, and there's no way that I can say that it's anything but that. But if you were to try to pin me down on certain pieces of theology or doctrine, I'm going to say, well, I don't know. I mean, there's some interesting gray areas in some of these things, and so I'm not really, in certain cases, some Christian people would be pretty uncomfortable with some of the things that I wonder about. So,
Well, let me start us off with the question that I have just in general that I have trouble understanding because I don't come from any religion in particular, and that is this classification of different religions as crazy or crazier, and some are normal and mainstream. And you take things like Mormon, I suppose it depends on where you are, but for a lot of people, when they start diving into Mormon stuff, like the magic underwear and all this other stuff, like, whew,
your own planet.
these guys are nuts, and they look at Scientology, and they think, wow, those guys are crazy. But they do believe that a guy built a boat and had 2 of every animal brought on and then floated away because God told him to, and that God is his own son and came back and died and then came back 3 days later and was still God but still his own son. And that all makes perfect sense to them, and they'll just say, well, yeah, that's what the Bible says. And that sounds crazy to me. So how would you answer that? Let me start with you, Jim. You go to church on Sundays, right? Do you believe in Noah's Ark, for example?
I believe that there is God, that I'm not God,
Right. I think we can all probably agree with that.
that I kind of believe that we're in a fallen world. The Bible has a lot of metaphor and allegory in it.
So you don't take a literal...
literal, right.
Right, okay.
So, faith without reason leads to craziness, people strapping suicide vests on. But reason without faith, you get relative, everyone has their own truth, and it's all relative, which then leads to Nazism.
And Christianity has all these different people who read the same book and believe completely different things. And it's not just Christianity, but almost every religion. Lots of people who call themselves Christian, but these people believe that gays are going straight to hell, and these people believe that they're fine, and these people believe that this or that, because they're
Right.
reading the same passage, and they're sort of choosing to follow this one and not follow this one.
Well, what I like about Christianity is it's a religion of love. And
What about people who say that Islam is the same thing, and it doesn't seem like that to a lot of us?
Well, I don't know about Islam. I can barely even scratch the surface of Christianity.
No, but to say that Christianity is a religion of love that's what you make of Christianity. But then you've got the Reverend Fred Phelps saying that fags are going to hell because it's in the Bible.
Right.
That's not a religion of love for him, certainly. He thinks that you're a sinner and you're going to hell, and that's just the way that it is. So how can you both be...
Can you love somebody and tell them they're going to hell? This is just a question. Is saying that something's a sin the same as saying that it's not love? I'm just questioning your
If you loved somebody and you honestly believed they were going to hell, I think you would have to commit every waking hour to saving them from that hell, which is, I think, what people maybe believe that they're doing.
Yeah.
But they're full
Well,
of
we
crap.
have free
I'm just
will,
questioning the
so
tension between the two, that they're automatically in conflict with each other. That's
No, but if you were a Christian and you felt like anybody who's not Christian is going to hell, can you marry somebody who's not Christian? I would say no.
You
Right.
see it all the time. I had a guy on my block. He was an atheist. She was Christian. They were married for 15 years.
Well, how
But
could
it's
he
probably
possibly-
really difficult, but they were fine.
I would argue that he did not honestly believe then.
No, he was an atheist.
Oh.
She was religious.
Then I would argue that she did not really believe.
Okay.
Why would she be
But-
married to somebody for 40 years if they're going to hell and they're a bad person?
And that seems like that's what love is. I think that the frustration with both sides, and I'm hearing it with you guys as well, is it's just everyone's so condescending. It's like, well, if you don't believe, then you're a Nazi, and if you do believe, then you're crazy. Like, the value that I see is that we're all gonna die. We have no idea how or when. We have no control over anything in our lives, even though we think that we do, and we want to cling on to some tree of hope.
Aha.
So, what I would love to hear this discussion is a little less condescension.
Oh, was that aimed at me, Mike?
No, it's just all you guys.
Let me
Like,
tell you why religion exists, if I may. And Mike touched on it briefly there.
I want to say I have not meant to be condescending.
No,
No, and I know
I'm
you
not.
guys don't mean it, but
Yeah.
if our audience is like watching, like these are is a big topic, and I respect the fact that you three are out here discussing it because it's really important.
Well, I feel like if people would get offended and feel like we're condescending, that's the whole point of this discussion, is that we can't even have a
I
discussion about
don't,
it
you know,
without feeling
I barely
condescending.
even know myself. I just know I work around elderly people a lot and go into any nursing home and you can see what's waiting for you. You're going to be there one day unless you get hit by a bus or something.
Well, and that's what I was about to say. Let me just make
So
this
I
point,
mean, it's
Jim.
very what's the word? The thought that you can go on from this life
Right.
and be, yeah, that's a very appealing.
That's why it's all been created.
Well, yeah.
There's multiple reasons, but people don't want to accept the fact that life is random and life is chaos.
Right.
And they don't want to accept the fact that when they're dead, I'm just going to be in the dirt.
How could we be sitting here in these lights with all the environment around us, and have it be a random act of, I don't know.
Because life's random.
So
Nature's
some
random.
chemicals came together, and then 5 billion years ago, and then this is all what came just by random.
There may have been something 5 billion quadrillion years ago, some spark, and that had to come from somewhere, and maybe that's what God did. But people walk down the street and they see a piano fall on somebody, and they want to have a reason for, like, oh my God, a piano just fell on this guy. He must have done something bad. It's not going to happen to me because I pray or I believe this, I believe that. It can't just be random, because otherwise my son could have a piano fall on him instantly and be killed. And I can't rationalize that or accept that. I can't accept the fact that I'm just going to be in the dirt dead. So I come up with this whole thing. There's life after this one. It's going to be a beautiful one. It's going to be great. You don't have to fear death.
Well,
I'm not going to be in trouble because I'm going to throw a woman into this volcano, and then it's going to rain, and we're all going to be great because I believe that's what's going to happen.
So one thing I think is an interesting question for me is it's a really interesting subject that some people have looked into, but we have a sense that death is unjust. Humanity has certain instincts that are very interesting, and I think it's a fair question to say, why is that there? Why, regardless of faith or not faith or whatever, why is it that when we look at that retirement home, or we look at people going to death or close to death, we say that isn't right? There's something.
And it is instinctual.
It may be something inherent. It's worth asking the question: is there something in us that says, I'm supposed to last forever? There's something transcendent in me that should be in touch with something transcendent that is
your
out
soul,
there.
right?
Is
Your soul.
Is that and that shows up across religions, across cultures, and across time. Basically, as long as you've had humans, you've had people asking that question. And I would just say, and I'm not sure.
And come up with all kinds of different ways
Sure.
to
They're rationalizing
deal
it.
with it, or find a solution to that problem of death. And yeah. That's what you're saying religion is all these different ways of people finding solutions to the fact that we're going to die and not exist anymore.
Yeah, and not even necessarily die. I think that's the extreme of it. And I think when you're facing a life or death situation, it is instinctual. I think it really is built into you to be like, whether you believe in God or not, get me out of this one. And you automatically look up and be like, oh, God, please save me from this thing. Whether you believe in God
There's
or not.
no atheist in a foxhole, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it does happen. I've had it happen to me. So why do you feel that? Is that because there is a God and it's built in and he's put this little chromosome in each of us that will feel that in that time of need so that our bodies yearn for something else? I don't know.
I really think there's higher levels of vibration or existence. We live in space and time, and I believe God is outside of space and time, and it's not something that we can really understand. It's like what's that Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where if you observe yourself, you can't really. We're like a fish in water. A fish comes out of water and looks down and goes, oh, that's water. But when you're in water, it's all around us. We live in a universe that is going through time and space, and God is outside of that. And so, physics, modern physics is starting to understand that a little bit. And there's just, face it, there's just mysteries that we're never going to understand. And so that's kind of where faith comes in.
Because we can't accept the fact that we don't understand things.
Right.
That some things are just random and that they exist that way.
Well, guys, I think, Jim, that's like the thesis, really. Both all three of you. I mean, if you guys are wondering, I have no idea, nor do I care if there's a God. It's not going to affect me hitting on the chick at the grocery store. It's not going to affect me going to work every day. It's not going to affect me paying my bills every month. Like, is there value in saying, I don't know? Because everyone seems so confident that they know. And there's so much, I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of hubris in us as ants thinking we understand a human being's.
Well, it's the ultimate narcissism, really, is not only do I understand God, but you're backing the wrong God and I'm backing the right God, and let me tell you why you're wrong. And here's why. I mean,
here's why you're
here's,
wrong.
here's why you're wrong. Yeah,
Right.
it's the ultimate narcissism in that, no, believe me, I understand this. And, for example, everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but people who are raised in a religious home, Christian home, let's say, are more likely to be Christian. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
If you've known, that's what you've been raised, you've gone to, church. So now let's imagine a world where religion is not mentioned to children at all, between 0 and
Like in North Korea.
0 and 16. Well, yeah, but it's a much nicer place to live than North Korea. But you don't mention religion, you don't push anything on your kids, you don't do anything. And then they go to school and they take a class, and the class covers all the major religions.
Mm-hmm.
One semester you learn about Islam, you learn about Judaism, you learn about Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, all these different things. And then at the end of high school, the kid says, okay, well, you go ahead and pick a religion. What do you think happens there? Does the kid pick a religion? Would it be the one that his parents were? Would he not pick one at all because they all sound totally crazy? It'd be an interesting world, don't you think?
Sure.
I have a problem with people raising their kids in a certain way to believe a certain thing that they don't have a basis, that's not based in fact.
Can't be scientifically proved.
And the problem, and here's why that doesn't work, and I'll argue against myself here. You should be able to raise your kids and tell them what's right and wrong, and morality. And that's not based on fact. Morality
That's
is
like
not based
Trina.
on
She
fact.
feels that way, that you be a good person, and
Right.
you.
And I
you
do
know,
think it's okay to teach your kids that. I think you have to teach your kids that. So what's the difference between that and religion? Neither one is factually based, but it's what I believe, and I want my kid to believe that same way. I don't know what the difference is, but one feels wrong to me and one feels right to me. And I think it's because religion so often is used to judge other people and to bring other people down. And I feel like if you want to have your religion, do your own thing, fantastic. Go have a blast. But they can't seem to just shut up and go be Christian, or shut up and go be...
Well, it's in the Bible, though, Mick. It's,
To go convert others?
yes.
Yeah.
and
Well, that's where you lose me.
Evangelical, Jesus said, "Come with me, and I'll make you fishers of men."
Yeah, but how do we know he said that?
Well,
That's crazy.
good point. I wasn't there. We weren't there.
Nobody was there. So what makes you a Christian and not a deist, Jim? You go to church, you believe that there's a God.
I like the idea of having a personal, that I know that, like probably the closest thing would be the way my mother loves me. I just feel like there is a God and I'm loved personally. I am
Okay,
loved
but you could still
personally.
be a deist and feel that way, couldn't you?
That'd be what deism is pretty impersonal, isn't that kind of the
Deism
But
is
deism means there's a
God.
God.
God flipped the switch. The world started, and He has nothing more to do with it.
Mick, to play the
Yeah.
devil's advocate, don't you think there's literally, I don't know, 5 or 6 billion people who believe, out of, almost everyone believes. So what I have the same issue as you. It's kind of the Amway thing where they're like trying to recruit everyone all the time and they judge you if you don't want to get involved. But on the other hand, if it makes someone go through their life and feel better, I have no judgment,
Yeah.
zero judgment. Because we're all just trying to get through this rocky thing called life. And I mean, I can't knock anyone for what they believe. Would you guys agree
I
with
can.
that or no?
I
Okay.
can knock someone for what they believe.
So, and that's why you started this show. Here's why you're wrong.
No, but listen, if somebody believes that gays should not have the right to get married because of their religion, and they therefore don't let gay people get married, they're wrong. That is incorrect, and just because you have that view does not make you right, and does not give you the right to push your beliefs on anybody else. If you want to believe that in the comfort of your own home, then fantastic, go do that. But they don't seem to be able to. They want to get into politics, they want to do this, they want to do that, and that's where I have the problem. And that is that you are using a book which has no real meaning to me. You're using a book that you've chosen to believe in.
Have you ever read self-help books?
No, I can't because they're ridiculous.
Like Maslow or whatever, psychology or...
I can't get into it.
Men are from Mars, women are from
okay.
Venus.
I can't get into it.
Well, I mean,
What
Trina's
you
got
said
this...
earlier, Jim, you said you want to believe that God has a personal interest in Jim.
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem like
And
a
he
kind of
has a
narcissism?
personally interest in you as well, everyone.
Don't try to
He,
convert
the
me
black
on
lady
the air,
in heaven. He. Okay, she.
It could be. It could be.
It
a
could
she,
go
who
viral
knows?
tomorrow.
I don't
though.
know.
That'd be the goal.
Right.
Man converts me on the air. No,
You know,
not
is
gonna
it some guy with a beard sitting on a throne? No, I don't believe that.
Okay.
I.
Well, see, but you laughed at that. Why is that so silly?
What?
A guy with a beard on a throne, that's what everybody believes.
Not everybody believes that. No, God
Well,
is
I don't think
so.
most-
Going back
You know,
hundreds of years, every painting that depicts God or
when
or
you
this or
when
that,
you
I
read
think
about
that's
like the
main
Bible
thing.
when Moses was on the Mount Sinai or whatever, and
That's after
I
the
mean
flaming
God,
bush talked to
yeah,
him.
the presence of God would incinerate, I believe, a mortal person.
So you don't think Moses was on the mountain?
I think that, but what I'm saying is that God, as far as a man, comparing God to a man with a beard sitting on a throne or on a cloud is a
Well, I think
like
that's
a
how
child, like a child thinking of that their parent is God or whatever, or
Well, we have to rationalize and visualize it somehow. So
yeah,
we come up with the cloud
right,
and the beard.
and over time, as I guess, what I think is, at one point, the story is Adam and Eve ate the apple of good and evil, whereas before that, it was a garden where just trust God or whatever, but for whatever reason, they decided that they could be like God or whatever, or for whatever reason, they became knowledgeable of good and evil. Before that, there was only good,
But do
and
you
so
believe
we're
that,
all, yeah, I
literally?
believe that, in a sense, I do believe that.
That there was an Adam and an Eve and they bit
and
the
then
apple
we've
and-
been trying as a
Every good Christian
species,
believes in that.
we've been, as a species, over thousands of years, and it seems like, when agriculture happened, and the patriarchal religions kind of came up, that this whole thing kind of happened. I mean,
Well, wait a minute. Okay, wait. You're getting a little. Mike is saying
I'm-
every
I'm-
good Christian believes in Adam and
Which
Eve.
I would
That's a
disagree.
fact.
I would
That's a
disagree.
fact.
I would completely
Oh,
disagree
okay.
with that statement.
Okay.
So just by the way, there's a lot. So I think that
It's
people
an
believe-
allegory.
Yeah,
It's an
be-
allegory.
You
It's
can
a-
be a
it's a-
Christian and believe that that's
Right.
an allegory. That there are other
Okay,
non-literal
that's a
ways
good
of.
point, David. Yeah, yeah, it's a good point.
So I mean, I'm just saying. So and I just want to say just real quickly, and I want to actually riff on something you said earlier, that I think that that's actually part of the problem in the United States anyway, is that we all think we know, that and Christianity's created it themselves, that everybody you have to believe it this way.
Right.
This is exactly what this is, and you have to believe it this precise way. And I think that. I don't think it's really that way, actually. The truth is about Christianity is that it's actually not like that, generally speaking. But a lot of the loudest voices communicate that it is. And so I think that what's really wrong, and I think it's also wrong when we talk about Islam, is that the loudest voices oftentimes are the
Right.
ones that are the
The
most
nut jobs.
controlling. Yeah, they're the most
when you
manipulative.
say that-
and they skew the conversation and create division. and then by creating the conversation that way, then you have the voices on the other side, so you wind up with this tension going on. And I also want to just, and we can get back to it later, I want to talk at some point about religion's relationship with politics, because I think that relationship in the United States has really fouled up. Really fouled up the conversation about religion and politics.
We have about 10 minutes. I don't know if we'll have time for that. I would love to hear you guys' opinions. What percentage do you believe in the existence of God or not believe in the existence of God? Is it like 100 guys? Like for each of you, I'm curious.
The what?
I have no clue.
Do you believe there's a God? How much do you believe that there's a God? 100%?
Is that what the question was, or were you saying
Yes.
how population?
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
curious as to each
God
one.
has never spoken directly to me and said, Jim, I am God, here I am. So I can't say for 100% that, I just know, it just seems to me that makes sense. I want to be loved, and I feel like there is a God that loves me, and
So what percentage, Jim? Pick a percentage.
a percentage?
Not 100%, you just said.
99, 98%?
You're pretty darn sure.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
I think Brian's at 100%.
I don't know if I'd say
Until
I don't-
God
I'm
speaks
not-
directly
I'm not
to me,
I'm not
I mean,
inclined. It's sort of like asking. I don't know. Yeah, it's a pretty binary.
have
question.
you ever had any weird, like, out-of-body experiences or any just things you can't explain happen to you? I had one
That's
one
the whole
thing
thing,
happen.
though, Jim.
I had one thing happen but I wouldn't want to say it here, but yeah.
Well, okay. Well, thanks for letting
Okay.
us know that.
Mick, are you 100% sure that there isn't a God? It's
No.
not a binary question.
Wait.
There are 100 selections
100% sure that there isn't a God?
that there's not a God.
No, I believe there is a God.
Okay, so you believe that there is a God.
But he's not
Yes.
involved in our lives here.
I have no idea.
Right.
How would I know it's God?
I just know what I think I feel. I mean, but
No, but you just said, have you ever had an out-of-body experience or something that you couldn't explain?
that, yes, I had something happen to me once that I guess makes me closer to 99% than 50%. So
Is that because you need a way to explain it, though? Because that's my point. That sometimes things happen and there's just no explanation. Things just
Right.
happen. And we can't accept that fact. We have to say, "Ooh, that was the ghost. Did you feel that? That was the ghost of the guy who died in this room, and he came through here."
Serendipity,
No,
yeah.
sometimes just my arm hair tingled a little bit, and that felt weird,
Right.
and I don't know what the deal was with that. But we have to assign some sort of a thing to it, and you start, I mean, what's the difference between superstition and religion at that point? When you're like, oof, Bob fell into the volcano yesterday, and we had a great crop season, So maybe next year we push somebody
We'll
into the
throw his
volcano,
wife, okay.
and there's going to be more crops. You just assign these random things. We're like, oh, this correlation seems to make sense to me. And of course, we've evolved beyond that now to other things, but we still are just so entrenched in this belief that, well, no, this is the way that it works, and if I do this, then this will happen.
Well, look at the radical message of Christ that came 2,000 years ago in a world where life had no value, or, and he said things like, love your enemy.
Yeah,
So-
but then he also said, I'm a jealous God. And
Well, in
don't
the
make any
Bible-
That's from
idols
your
and-
Jewish school. That's the old, but yeah, Jesus
Yeah,
didn't say
I
that,
rock
yeah.
it Old Testament. No,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Because Jesus wasn't really
Right.
around. It
There
didn't
was
exist.
a lot
But
of slaughter. I'm giving you this land, and I want you to go out and slaughter the people that are living there because I'm giving it to you.
that's fine.
I want to ask a quick question. So you just said that kind of off to the side to me. Just curious? Do you believe that a person
Named
that
Jesus existed.
that the person whoever this Jesus guy was, do you believe that guy never lived, or what do you?
I
is that
don't
what you
know.
just said?
There was
Okay.
probably a guy named Jesus.
Okay. I'm just.
But at a certain point, something becomes a cult and not a religion. This guy came around. He had some really great ideas. A lot of people started following him and like, hey, have you heard of this Jesus guy? He's got some great thoughts on this, and he probably had some good
There's
morals
been a
and some
lot of
good
people
values.
like that through history, but
Absolutely.
they've never. There's only one person that said he was God. But
if I said I was God right now, I would get locked up. Like, saying you're God doesn't make you God. That's crazy. Did he really turn?
But I mean, if it was just a
did he
crackpot,
turn water into wine?
how
was that
could
Jesus? Okay.
How could
Do you think he turned water into wine?
It's one of the miracles in the Bible.
That's not what I
It's
asked.
well
I
documented.
said, do you think he did that? It's well documented. By what?
By eyewitnesses.
Like who?
So I'm arguing a point. So I respect,
I've heard this argument
I respect
before.
the arguments against, but I would just, in fairness, it's the people that witnessed it weren't crazy. I mean, so at least they
Well,
weren't recognized. Maybe they. Okay, so let's
Talk
say
about
in
third
some ca-
hand. You're talking about 2,000 years ago
In some
what somebody
cases-
saw and then told their brother Jim
It's
who
How
wrote
is
it down.
something
They
lasted-
were accused of it. But the thing I would just say quickly about that's interesting to just think about is that basically 12 guys who were fishermen and tax collectors and what we would consider to be drug dealers and street people, and I mean definitely not the aristocrats of their time, followed a guy around for 3.5 years or so and claimed, right, to have seen miracles and committed and done some themselves apparently, and that following grew and then it shrank, and whatever, by the time Jesus was crucified it was had shrunk down again. But then a number of people claimed to have seen him alive after he was dead. Those stories lived on. The thing that's interesting is that within 90 years, there were so many Christians on the street of Rome that Caesar himself was saying, we've got a Christian problem. That religion with a bunch of relatively uneducated fishermen electrified
It really took off.
the known world.
Yeah.
And so I would just say that I would say that that's an interesting thing to consider if you were to think about the idea that it was
Just a
that it's a
crackpot.
fiction,
Yeah.
that some intelligent people created this story and sold it because they did a sales job.
It happens every
would be-
day.
But not. I would argue. I don't think it happens to that kind of scale every day.
Come on.
The known world. I mean, really,
Well, the known world at the time was pretty small.
the Mediterranean, the
Okay,
Greek-speaking.
well, that
yeah.
was pretty small. I mean,
Compared-
20,
yeah.
30
Roman
years ago, some
Empire.
guy got 2,000 people to fly to South America with him and then killed them all with Kool-Aid.
I don't think that compares. Does it really? Do you?
Well, it was modern day.
Yeah.
Compared to, I think it's a lot harder now to get 2,000 people to follow you down there and kill themselves than it was 2,000 years ago to get people who were much less educated to grasp on anything they could grasp onto when
Yeah.
they're living in, total upheaval and filth.
I want to just make a quick point.
Yes.
If I came across, by the way, to the guys in the booth there, if that comes across as arrogant, or I don't know how that comes across.
You're defensive now.
No. The only thing I wanted to say, if I could just make any point, is that the thing I feel like I've learned is that, and whether even Mormon or Islam or whatever it is, the thing that's interesting to me is that the people that make these arguments are not stupid. We have the assumption that people who say things that are different than what we think are automatically dumb, and I think that it's worth considering that there's a lot of really intelligent thought and going on to.
I think
we're
so
out of
too.
time, sorry.
We're gonna have to have another. Will you come back for another
I'd
show?
like to, yeah, and I'm
Okay.
gonna need to be a lot more vocal this
We're
next
gonna
time.
we're gonna have to wrap it up. Well, next time we're gonna come back. We had some difficulty in the booth, so we're whether or not it went out live tonight, I'm not sure. But we're gonna be back in 2 weeks. It's gonna be the 19th. So if you like this discussion, check us out then. WrongTVShow.com. We're definitely gonna circle back on this because I'm not done with either of you two. But I want to thank Jim, thank Bryan, and we'll see you next time.